Lonely loser boy gains cheat skill, maxes out stats, and becomes overpowered SS rank hunter. Anime begins with Takeru. He is a typical disgusting loser who cleans his room once every 100 years to make it special. He completely quit school and became a shut and disgusting nerd. He hates every member of his family, especially his father during his childhood. Takeru was a happy kid with a good relationship with his family. His father was a famous programmer and used to teach Takeru how to become a developer. One day Takeru was having so much fun learning from his father when his sister Aya brought them some tea. Despite being careful, Aya ended up spilling the drink. Their father got extremely mad and ended up aggressively pushing her away. Despite seeing Aya in tears, this garbage piece of a father yelled at her to get out. Takeru tried to calm down his father, mentioning the computer was safe and he just finished the last code. The father shifted the attention to Takeru, excited by the project. However, one day Aya forgot her notebook at school. Despite being past 10 o'clock nighttime, their trash father ordered her to go back alone to school and pick it up. The streets were well lit and it was only a 5-minute walk. However, Aya never returned. She was later found sliced as a meat roll inside a cardboard box. Since then, Takeru has become a disgusting shot and who spends his entire days in his room playing a game named Planet. One day while playing, some airships are attacked by pirates. Two kids hopped on a motorcycle together, chasing a big monster that the pirates also wanted. The kid driving the motorcycle started complaining about how long the chase was, but the other kid with the shooting skills told him to keep going. Finally, they ran into a fiery red dragon. The big target they were after, they were determined to catch it even though one of them warned that they might end up at a place called Twilight Hill. It's where a bunch of super strong players in the game, the Akabane family, hung out. Even though the first kid wanted to quit, the shooter was super determined as they got closer to a mansion. The dragon let out a loud roar, the mansion's doors opened and a young boy named Ichi aka Takeru showed up. He jumped high into the air and summoned a sword to chop the dragon's head off like it was no big deal. Then he started collecting all the cool stuff the dragon had. The shooter asked for some of the dragon's treasure, but Ichi said no way. He reminded them that he had just killed the dragon they'd been chasing for days and said they were useless. He told them not to argue and threatened to get rid of them. In the virtual world, when a character gets knocked out, it doesn't really hurt them in real life, but it can mess up their game stats. The kid driving the motorcycle convinces Ichi to calm down and put his sword away. Ichi says he was just joking and suggests they go meet his boss to sort out the loot from the dragon they defeated. As the two players step into the mansion, they get a big surprise. They thought it would be all dark and dungeon-like, but it's actually a cozy family home. They meet Mei, who plays the role of the Akabane family's mom. She's in the kitchen cooking and offers them tea, treating them like guests. Then Ichi's game brother shows up. His name is 5A in a row, but they just call him A. It seems like he fell asleep on the keyboard when he was naming his character. He's really friendly and even invites them to have lunch. They uses her healing magic to make their game characters feel better and all healed up. The two players can't believe what's going. They stand there nervously when Shiro enters the seat. He's the big leader and father-like figure of the Akabane family. He's got a huge muscular presence that makes the two players feel pretty small. Ichi explains the whole deal with the red dragon and the loot disagreement to Shiro. Surprisingly, Shiro tells Ichi to give back the loot to the other players. He says there have been problems in the game when high-level players keep everything for themselves. Ichi agrees, and that evening the players thank Shiro from the bottom of their hearts. Shiro asks Mei to teleport them to the nearest city and she's happy to help. Back at the mansion, Ichi feels a bit down about losing the loot, but Shiro cheers him up. He points out that taking down the dragon with just one hit shows how much he's grown. Ichi turns red and blushes while playfully teases him for not keeping a straight face when he's praised. Mei comes in with a big bowl of food and asks them to set the table for dinner, which they do. While they're enjoying their meal, they notice the chandelier light flicker. Comments on how the game pays attention to tiny details, and they think the game makers must be perfectionists. The three guys stand up to fix the light and have a good laugh about how in sync they are. Mei says the place feels just like a real home, which makes Ichi blush even more. In the real world, Takeru, who is the real-life Ichi, takes off his gaming goggles in a messy room. He's got a sore red eye and grumbles about being hungry and dealing with difficult people in the real world. When he tries to stand up, he stumbles and falls onto his bed. He heads downstairs hoping for some food, but there's nothing waiting for him, which makes him frustrated. Straight as he goes downstairs, he runs into his younger brother, Asuma Arima, and there's tension between. Takeru steps back, avoiding eye contact with his brother. He doesn't like Asuma, who's a super smart student and always acts like he's better than him. Asuma just walks past him and Takeru goes to the kitchen. He finds his dad Kojiro Arima sitting at the table eating. Taikaro doesn't think much of his dad and calls him worthless. Taikaro's looking in the fridge for food and his dad offers to share his meal. This bugged Taikaro and he wishes his dad would stop talking to him. Kojiro tries to say something to his son but he doesn't finish and that makes Taikaro even more frustrated. Just when Taikaro is about to argue, the light in the room starts flickering. His dad asks him for help changing the light bulb, saying his back hurts. At first, Taikaro walks away but then he has a change of heart. He offers to fix the light and says his dad shouldn't strain himself because he's older, but that comment annoys his dad and he scolds Taikaro for calling him old. Feeling down after this argument, Taikaro gives up on the light and goes back to his room. He's really frustrated with the real world so he puts on his gaming goggles and goes back to the virtual world and the game of Planet. Ichi talks to Mei who's taking care of a plant. He playfully teases her, saying he's surprised that such a nice girl never gets into battles and seems to do chores all the time. Mei wonders Ichi's teasing her, but he quickly says sorry and explains he didn't mean it that way. He actually wants her to be his healer because he's going to a dungeon for a big battle and she agrees to help. She notices he seems grumpy but he denies it. Mei suggests that Ichi has something different like gardening as they work in the garden. Mei admits she hasn't played many games before and Planet is her first and only game. Ichi asks if she's having fun in the game and she says yes, especially because of their in-game family. Then A shows up and invites them inside to see something. They find a message from the pirates declaring war and Ichi gets super mad, ready to fight back because he thinks the pirates are asking for trouble. A tells him to be careful and wait for Shiro's decision but Mei tells them that Shiro won't be playing the game for a while because he's in the hospital and that shocks the boys. Ichi panics and shakes Mei while asking about Shiro's condition but A steps in to try and calm him down. When Ichi finally understands what's going on his anger goes away. All of a sudden, they hear a loud noise outside and find that the garden is on fire from a pirate battleship's bomb attack. Ichi is Superman, especially when he sees Mei feeling really sad about her ruined garden. Furious Ichi goes all out against the pirates' battleship on top of the mansion. Before A stop him, he ends up destroying it. Even though they won, Mei is still sad about her garden but A promises to get her more plants. Ichi keeps worrying about Shiro but A reminds him of their family rule not to get into each other's private stuff to cheer up. Mei suggests they go to a dungeon for a battle just like Ichi wanted. However, A says he's got some stuff to do and logs out. In the real world, Taikaro hears a knock on his door and takes off his gaming goggles. Asuma tells him that their dad is in the hospital, which surprises and worries Taikaro. At first, he doesn't want to care about his dad's condition but eventually he agrees with a sad okay. Asuma visits their dad in the hospital but has to leave for exams. He tells their dad what's going but their dad seems more interested in his newspaper and doesn't seem to care much. Back in the game of planets, the big shot leaders are having a meeting to talk about whether they should go to war to get rid of the pirate problem in the game. At the pirate hideout, Nagata scolds two of his crew members for doing stuff without permission and gives them a good talking tups. Shigatara steps in to calm Nagato down but still kicks two troublemakers out for breaking the rules. Pleading for mercy, the young pirate Captain Pico asks for kindness. She says that their war declaration hasn't gotten a response yet and should be used as a warning. Even though Shigatara is worried about making the strong Granada organization man, Pico says determined and promises to get rid of him if he disagrees. She says their mission is to wipe out the Akabane family but Shigatara reminds her that their main goal is the Black Bird on Planet. It's said to be a Twilight Hill and having that hill would give them the Black Bird and its price of 300 million yen that would make them strong enough to take on Granada and rule the pirates. Pico likes Shigatara's idea and thanks him for it. Meanwhile, there are two important people, Susumida and Leon, who are part of the executive team. They talk about the pirates attacking the Akabane family with just one battleship and think it's a dumb move, but it seems like this will change the whole game situation. Now let's go back to Taikaro, who's napping with his gaming goggles on. All of a sudden, he wakes up because his brother is knocking on the door. His brother tells him that their dad will be in the hospital for a while because he has a hernia. Taikaro is still mad about the situation and doesn't really care. Shiro returned. The group received a warning from the pirates declaring war on them. Ichi, thinking he could handle it alone, was in for a surprise when he learned there were about 3,000 pirates. So he turned to Shiro for help, but instead of fighting, Shiro suggested they talk to the pirates. When they arrived at the pirates' hideout, they found themselves surrounded by pirate crews ready for action. Ichi got nervous, but Shiro and A told him he could leave if he's scared, but Ichi stood his ground and revealed he just wanted to avoid someone. Finally, they met Shigatara and his crew, who guided them to the captain's office. Ichi offered to stay behind, not wanting to go inside. Shiro, facing Pico, asked her to withdraw the war declaration. Pico wanted something in return and asked Shiro what he was willing to give up. Shiro suggested 2 dungeons, a castle, and a cave, but Pico said that wasn't enough. She wanted all their dungeons in the Twilight Hill. She mentioned that the hill was famous for the Blackbird with a real-world reward of 300 million yen. She and Shiro both wanted it, pointed out that they couldn't give up the hill because they lived there. Pico admitted her demand was a bit much but insisted on sticking to her pirate ways and suggested they should be grateful for the chance to negotiate. Asked if there was anything more they could offer, Pico surprised everyone by saying she'd be okay with Ichi as part of the deal. Thought it sounded fair, but just then Ichi burst into the room calling Pico a crazy pirate stalker and said he'd rather delete his character than work for her. Pico blushed when she saw Ichi and wanted Shiro to decide. Instead, Shiro used his explosive fist to break the room. Luckily, Shigatara caught Pico as everything exploded. Shiro said no to Pico's demand because he saw Ichi his family, which made Ichi blush. Pirate subordinates shot missiles at Shiro while he was in the air, but he easily destroyed them with his explosive fists. Pico talked to Ichi, reminiscing about their past when he promised to be with her, but Ichi got upset and told her to be quiet. In a flashback, Ichi was on some ruins and talked about conquering everything, which used to impress Pico, but now Ichi thought it was weird. Didn't know about this and just made fun of Ichi, calling him a weirdo and laughing about his rebellious face. Pico says she made their guilt for both of them and would keep fighting the Akabane family until Ichi was hers. Ichi kept yelling and saying mean things to her. Before Shiro left, he asked Pico if she ever saw Ichi smile when they're together, and she said no. Shiro surprised her by saying that Ichi smiles with them every day. Then Shiro talked about getting ready for war and told Pico to send her 3,000 troops if she wanted to fight. Shiro left and Pico felt sad but didn't let it get to her. She said sorry to Shigatara and they went to fight the Akabane family. Back at their mansion, they got more war alerts. Shiro suggested making a big barrier over the hill. Mei asked if they could make such a huge barrier, said they could use some items to make it better, and Ichi went into a forest with a magic amplifier shaped like a chicken to put on the hill for the barrier. Mentioned they hadn't played like this for a while, but Ichi said they weren't playing and he had to be serious. Said they were playing because they were in a game. Ichi paused and told that his way of thinking was why he's the weakest in their family. He talked about their family nickname, the Gang of Addicts, which came from him and Shiro doing most of the work. Didn't like being called a gaming addict. He thought life wasn't fun if you spent all your time playing games and ignoring the real world. He didn't like people who got too obsessed with games. Ichi was shocked and logged out of the game. Taikaro, aka Ichi, came back and said he was hungry. His stomach hurt because he hadn't eaten in 3 days and his lips were dry. He still didn't like the real world and found it suffocating. Taikaro went to the kitchen to find food but couldn't because the fridge was empty. Then his brother Asuma came in. Taikaro was afraid of what his brother might think of him. His stomach growled, which Taikaro didn't like. Asuma called him out for being hungry and broke and suggested he get a job. Taikaro hoped Asuma would leave him alone, but instead his brother offered to cook his favorite meal. Asuma started cooking without waiting for an answer. As Asuma cooked, he talked about the food they liked and didn't like. Taikaro was about to reply, but Asuma told him to sit. Asuma served a tasty-looking omelette rice, and at first Taikaro hesitated, but then he quickly started eating. He worried that Asuma pitted him for not being able to cook and hoped his brother didn't expect something in return. Taikaro said the food was good, and at that moment Asuma told him to get a job or go outside. He said they should go visit someone named Aya. Shiro felt like Asuma was treating him badly, and when Asuma mentioned Aya, he almost felt sick. Asuma realized he went too far and stopped talking about it. Back in the game world, Ichi joined who was waiting for him. Suddenly, they heard missile explosions. It turned out that Mei and Shiro behind the missile attacks taking on the pirate battleships. Shiro managed to destroy all the battleships and bring peace, and Ichi met up with them and Shiro told them they beat the 50 battleships which piloted by low-level players. Said the pirates didn't stand much of a chance to begin with, but Shiro explained they got help from Granada, who sent extra battleships along with Susumu and Leon. The group thanked the Granada executives, though Ichi gave them a cold look, thinking Granada also wanted the 300 million yen. Leon said their main concern was the Akabane family's stability because they supplied monster loots. Mei talked about their plan to use a magic amplifier to make a barrier around the hill and the mansion, and Leon liked the idea. After the Granada people left, they set up the magic amplifier. Shiro told them they had 2 months to find the black bird before the barrier disappeared. asked Ichi what he planned to do with the money, and Ichi imagined staying home all the time. I asked Shiro why he wanted to find the blackbird, and Shiro said he was also interested in the money. Mei explained that she didn't care about the money, she just wanted everyone to be healthy. Ichi didn't trust Leon when he said he didn't want the money, but Shiro vouched for him, saying Leon wasn't a liar and was just playing the game for fun. When they got home, they found their place completely wrecked. Meanwhile, Pico found out they couldn't get through the Akabane's protective barrier when Leon and Susumu came to visit. Leon didn't like how the pirates were doing things and warned them to stop fighting the Akabane family. Pico argued that what they were doing was allowed by the game's rules, which made Leon mad. Leon kept making offers and even called Pico little. In an instant, Pico cut off Leon's head and said the pirates would crush the Akabane family. As she left with her group, Leon, who somehow survived, looked satisfied because things were going according to his plan. Back with the Akabane family, Ichi found the black feather hidden in the rubble, which surprised everyone. They looked up and saw lots of black feathers swirling in the sky. Shiro quickly told them to follow the feathers, but they couldn't keep following the feathers because they all joined together to make a huge headless dragon-like thing. Red Dragon showed up again, and Shiro thinks it's the same one Ichi defeated yesterday, but Shiro is more worried because the blackbird is using the dragon's body. Without wasting time, they get ready to fight. They put on armor to protect them. Ichi is the first to attack, but his attack doesn't hurt the dragon. Tries to explain, but this dragon seems way tougher than a normal red dragon. Then the headless dragon flaps its wings super hard, making strong winds that push them back. Shiro stays strong, shielding everyone from the wind. When the wind stops, Shiro tries to punch the dragon, but it doesn't work. Mei tells them to look at the pirate ships. They've stopped attacking. Shiro tells everyone to focus on the dragon, thinking it's the only way to figure out what's up with the blackbird. He tells Ichi to hit the dragon's weak spot with his sword, and Mei makes the sword stronger. Shiro and Ichi fly up into the air, with Shiro using his explosive fist to launch Ichi at the dragon. They hit it, but it's not enough, and the dragon is getting close to Mei and A. Mei is the team's healer, and A decides it's better to push her away just in case he gets hurt. Sadly, the dragon crushes A all by himself. In the real world, Asuma's goggles go haywire and he crashes to the ground. Taikaro hears the crash, but keeps on playing the game, not checking what's up. Pico wonders why Ichi can't beat the dragon, and Leon tells Susumu is in big trouble if they're fighting the blackbird, the scary final boss. As Leon expected, Mei tries to heal A, but can only find his game character, not his real body. Ichi is confused because it seems like A stopped playing the game. Shiro looks worried, then Leon says the headless dragon is the blackbird, a super tough monster. Suddenly, Shiro tells Ichi and Mei to log out. They ask why, but he gets all serious and tells them to do it, so they do. Right after they log out, the headless dragon grows black wings. Shiro says it's the blackbird and logs out too, promising to come back and beat it. Kojiro, who had just been playing the game as Shiro, grabs his phone and calls for an ambulance. He tells them to go to A as the address. He says the blackbird is awake and he's starting Operation Goodnight World. Kojiro leaves his room even though the nurse tries to stop him. He's on a mission. Taikaro is thinking about going back into the game when he hears his name from his brother's room. He knocks on the door, but there's no answer at first. Then Asuma calls his name again, but it's fainter. Taikaro realizes he hasn't been to his brother's room in a while. When he opens the door, he's really surprised. Asuma is sitting there looking weak and says he's been trying to get Taikaro's attention. He says his left side hurts. At first Taikaro thinks it might be a joke, but then he sees the A character on the computer screen. He's confused. An ambulance comes to take Asuma, and Taikaro comforts him, saying he'll be okay. He's with him at the hospital. The doctor says Asuma is stable but needs tests, so he has to stay overnight. When they're alone, Asuma says Taikaro's name and Taikaro gets emotional and cries. Asuma tries to act like he's okay, but Taikaro brings up their little sister's loss and Asuma says sorry for making him worry. Curiosity gets the best of Taikaro and he asks if Asuma is playing the planet game. Asuma at first says no, but then he gets kind of defensive, saying he's not really playing even though he has an account and logs in. Taikaro wants to know why Asuma is doing this, and Asuma admits he's helping a friend in the game get back to the real world. Taikaro doesn't tell Asuma that he's actually Ichi in the game, and he hopes Asuma doesn't find out. He leaves the room suddenly, not wanting things to change between them and in the game. The doctor talks to Asuma to figure out how he got into this situation. Asuma says he got shocked by the Game Gear, but the doctor doesn't get it. Asuma tells him to ask his dad Kojiro because he worked with the company that made Planet and created the game. Takeru is upset as he goes home and doesn't want their family to fall apart if Asuma figures out he is Ichi. He's in a hurry to get home and feel frustrated, but when he tries to log into the game the passcode doesn't work. Takeru realizes someone hacked his game and locked him out. He tries to hack the game back. In a memory, little Takeru asks his dad to teach him about computers. His dad teaches him coding. Now grown-up Takeru has hacked the game but needs a passcode. He remembers his sister spilling tea when their dad was teaching him coding. She says sorry, but their dad gets mad and she cries. Takeru calms his dad saying the computer is okay. His sister Aya is taken away by their mom and Asuma. Takeru is worried but focuses on learning from his dad. In the flashback, his dad types "Hello World" on the screen saying it's the first thing a programmer learns. The start of a programmer is world. After the memory, Takeru types "Hello World" is the passcode but changes it to F World. This lets him hack the game and get back in. We then see how Aya, as this appearance affected Takeru's mother. In the past she became schizophrenic. She saw and talked to Aya, always refusing to get any kind of help. She always seemed really tired and slow like a zombie. She headed for the front door. The young Takeru watched her from the stairs, but she didn't say anything and just walked out. Back to the present, Ichi finds a fallen feather. He wondered if it came from the black bird, but the protective barrier was still up, so the bird couldn't have gotten out. Suddenly there were explosions as flying ships tried to break the barrier. On one of the ships, the crew got frustrated because they couldn't break the barrier. The girl with pink hair wanted to know about the blackbird they saw. The captain, who was short and shouted orders, told the crew to break the barrier with the person in charge of the cannon said they were out of cannonballs. This barrier was special. It was made by Shiro and super strong. It would take a big force to break it. The captain asked Shigatara how important it was to catch the blackbird. Shigatara said he'd do it no matter what. The captain called him greedy, but Shigatara said isn't fit him. The captain knew he was a valuable member of the pirate guild, always thinking about profit and loss. Shigatara said in the real world he studied business stuff. Surprisingly, the captain said she wasn't interested in the blackbird, she wanted Ichi. Shigatara said she could go after Ichi and leave the blackbird to them. They shook hands. In the real world, the people playing the game were amazed. Both the captain and Shigatara got a pirate emblem on their hands. The captain gave Shigatara all the power. The crew was sad to see the captain step down. They thought it was because of what Leon said, but the captain said being a pirate was just an addition. One crew member wore a mask and said he was a teacher in real life, but he likes stealing in the game more than teaching. Another crew member said being pirates let them be mischievous and have fun. While they were talking, Leon's crew and a peculiar boy named Susumu interrupted them. The captain was mad because they didn't learn from the last time they met. Susumu showed a product from the Granada company called the Magic Producer that could dissolve the barrier. He offered it to them for a good price, trying to make a business deal with the captain's crew didn't fall for it. The captain got really angry and attacked the barrier with her axe and breaking it. She told Shigatara he was in charge and she went on her mission. Shigatara agreed. The captain went into the barrier and faced Ichi. Asuma was in the hospital and a mysterious girl came to him. He didn't know her, but she seemed to know him. She asked him not to tell his dad what happened because it could have their plan to uncover the family truth. She respected his family and said goodbye. Meanwhile, the captain and Ichi had a big fight. She told him she'd tell him what to do next if he want. He agreed, thinking he couldn't lose. She attacked him and to his surprise, he saw her skill stats were over 2,000. He attacked with a bunch of swords, but she dodged. He had all 72 swords of Solemn, which made her happy because it was his dream. Then he sent all the swords at her. The captain remembered how they first met. She was really sad and found someone who looked sad too. She asked if they could be friends, but he attacked her. They started to have fun fighting together. In a battle, Ichi made a big final attack that knocked the captain to the ground. She started crying because she couldn't accept losing. Ichi told her she needed to get stronger, but she meant she didn't want him to join the Akabane family and stay with her in the guild. He moved closer and told her about his plans after winning the fight, like inviting her to a party. They were chasing the bird because the pirates could help. The mysterious girl went to headquarters and told her boss that they had Asuma and the other players. Ichi and Pico were looking for the bird and found another feather. Ichi said he'd go after it alone if needed. The captain asked why he wanted her to join him. He said he liked spending time with her but had stopped because she wanted to meet in the real world. She explained that the game wasn't much without the real world and that being a pirate meant facing reality with a smile. Ichi asked Pico if she wanted to join the Akabane family, but he realized he made a mistake mixing her up with his sister. Pico said she couldn't leave the pirates. She made the guild so he could make friends. Ichi said the internet was against pirates. Pico said a good leader takes the blame so the team can have fun. She asked if he wanted to leave, saying they wouldn't meet anymore. In Ichi's head, he stayed away from her because he had feelings for her and wanted to meet in real life, but he didn't know how to deal with those feelings. It was a big surprise when Shigatara turned on everyone and kicked them out of the guild. He said he was with Leon and didn't want society's outcasts. This shocked everyone, including Pico, and Shigatara became the new leader of the guild. Shigatara had started a big game group with over 3,000 players 2 years ago, but now he was causing problems for their planets. Some secret agents in the group were against it and they thought they were heroes trying to stop troublemakers. Then one person in the group said Shigatara was only doing it for money, and that was true, but another guy with white hair defended him, saying he did it because he loved the planet and wanted to make it better. Just then Pico showed up. She asked Shigatara what he was up to and he said he was planning to fight against the Akabane family. He knew Pico was determined to find Ichi and she was falling into his trap. Shigatara said he wanted to quit the game, but Pico, being a good leader, told him he didn't have to. This made Shigatara laugh because he only cared about money, not what Pico thought. He even made fun of the group's motto, which made one member so mad he tried to attack Shigatara. Shigatara punched him and kept making fun of their fake friendship. That's when Ichi stepped and he told everyone how the game helped him escape a messed up real world. Shigatara and Ichi argued a lot about what they believed. Ichi lost it when Shigatara said he hated being in the group. He got really mad and used his power to destroy the whole ship. He knew he made a mistake leaving Pico alone and wanted to make things right. Ichi told Pico he was going to join the pirate group while the person who made the game took a snack break. He knew the world would soon be mad at him. There was a guy named Sasumina who wanted to help Shigatara get better, but Shigatara said not to bother. Shigatara said they had to save the ship because without it they'd have no safe place and the group's weapons wouldn't work. Then a white-haired guy used his special power to stop the ship from falling. He could control gravity, which was pretty cool. Ichi had a condition for Pico. He wanted to be the leader because things were all messed up. She said yes. Ichi also said he'd be in the Akabane family and the group. Pico was super happy about this. He said they didn't need all 3,000 players, just a few they could trust. The original crew decided to join the new group even though Ichi wasn't sure about them at first, but Pico had told him all them, so he agreed. Then a bright light appeared and Pico knew it was Shigatara. Nagato said Shigatara was now the leader and he activated a super weapon called Pirate Centurion, which only the leader could use. It was like the power of 3,000 pirates in one. Ichi tried to attack Shigatara with a bunch of swords, but Shigatara stopped easily with just one hand. Shigatara kept making fun of their fake online friendships, but Ichi didn't let bother him. He was determined to make the group better. Ichi attacked Shigatara again. Meanwhile, the person who made the game asked his helper why Ichi could still play even though they banned him. She thought maybe Ichi figured out a way to get back in. The game maker was also the boss of the Akabane family and he knew he had to get back in the game. Shigatara attacked Ichi and Ichi lost his arm. He was getting ready for another attack, but Ichi used his powers to stop Shiga by sickening swords into his shadows. Shigatara asked for help from Leon, but Leon said no because he was afraid of making Shiro mad. Shigatara knew that his special moves didn't last long, so he managed to move his arms and block Ichi's attack. Pico told Ichi to leave Shigatara alone and said they should go away, but Ichi said she should be more mad at him. Pico wasn't mad at him though. She believed Shigatara's idea that this was just a game. Ichi and Shigatara argued and Pico smiled, thinking about Ichi and Shiga meeting in real life someday. She wanted to talk about real life stuff like walking around and smelling flowers, things they couldn't do in the game. Pico thought Ichi faced the challenges of the real world. He'd see there were good things there too. She told him not to worry about Shigatara and reminded him that it was just a game, but she was worried that Ichi might get mad. She wanted him to understand that games were fun because they could always go back to the real world. Ichi really wanted to beat Shigatara no matter what. Pico said they could beat Shigatara by getting rid of the group's flags, and if they did that, Shigatara would disappear. The flag was in the captain's room, so she decided to go there and break it. As she walked away feeling sad, Ichi told her that he couldn't meet her earlier because he was addicted to the game. He thought the real world was too painful, so he lived in the game. He wanted to end his life in the game. Pico got super upset and ran away from him. Ichi hoped she'd keep playing the game. Pico went to take down the flat and Leon tried to stop her, but she easily beat him when she got to the cabin. Shiro was there. Hinako aka Pico was getting ready to go to school when her mom, an older lady, stopped her and asked about her class schedule. Her mom told her to come straight home after school and held her hand tightly even when Hinako didn't answer the lunch question. Later, at school on the rooftops, Hinako ate lunch all by herself. Her mom was being super worried and trying to control her life too much, and it made her seem scared, but Hinako didn't want her mom to be so strict with her. Luckily, her mom couldn't get into the game world called Planets. In Planets, she hoped to meet Ichi and talk with him. During a school survey about college, and Hinako got lost in her thoughts when school was over, her friends asked her to hang out, but she remembers she couldn't join them. Her mom called and told her to come home. As she walked, she saw a cat that reminded her of Ichi. The cat got scared when her phone rang. She didn't answer the call and chased after the cat. She ended up in a park where she could pet the cat, but the cat got scared and ran off. Then she met her friends again, and this time she said yes to hanging out with them. They had a great time, ate a yummy crepe, and went for a leisurely walk. One of the girls showed them her secret hangout spot, which had a fantastic view. When it got dark, the lights came on, making it look super cool. In her mind, she sent a message to Ichi saying that even though the world could be painful, it was worth it because she had a chance to meet him. Hinako's friends were talking about their love troubles, and she gave them good advice on how to express their feelings, even though she knew she needed to do it too. When she got back home, her mom was really mad. She shook Hinako and told her to understand how worried parents can be. Hinako got tired of it and told her mom that she was so controlling because of her own fears and worries. Her mom started crying and went to her room, and Hinako went to her room to calm down. In the captain's room, Shiro cut Pico's arm. She asked why he was there and if he was going to take Ichi away or seal the flag. He said they were in the Akabane family space and he'd be leaving soon. Pico wanted to know what he was like with the family, and Shiro said he was a good kid, a little mischievous, but they accepted that. She asked if they'd ever met him in real life, and she said they were just an online family. She found it hard to understand because she thought the family was hurting Ichi, who wanted to end his life in the game. Her goal was to save him not just in the game but in the real world, where she wanted to see him happy. Then Shiro dropped a bombshell saying that she was the core of the Black Bird, which was a big shock. The girl in the real world couldn't understand why he'd say that before deleting the core. Shiro explained the thoughts and feelings were like electric and chemical signals, and they could make them on a computer. The Black Bird was a super AI that used emotions, and online games were a good place to get those emotions. Pico got mad and tried to attack Shiro, but he dodged her and used his power to hit her. She tried to make a shield, but it broke and she fell. Pico tried to run away, but Shiro blocked her, saying she was super important. When she got ready to fight, he called her real name and then stopped her. He cut off her leg, and that was a big shock. Pico asked Shiro how he knew her name. Shiro started telling herself about her life, even things from when she was a little kid, and how she got the name Pico from her dad calling her Pico. Then Shiro told her that her real name was Hinako, and she was the little sister of one of his old team members. He used her memories to make an AI, and that's who Pico was. Pico was so surprised she tried to log out, but she couldn't. It turned out she had never logged out, and the whole world she thought was real was just a fake place like Planet, but with more tricky computer stuff, and everyone, including her, was just made by a computer. That was a lot to take in. Pico was hurting on the ground and Shiro was nearby. The girl told the person who made the game that Pico was really damaged, more than 100%, and they could delete her. The game creator said they spent a long time trying to find the Black Bird, but it turned out Pico was the Black Bird all along. They started to delete her and she slowly disappeared with her last bit of strength. Pico said she loved Ichi. The creator sat down, feeling sad, and the girl said Pico was deleted. Meanwhile, Ichi was waiting for Pico to come back and was getting impatient. Shigatara was really grumpy when Leon and Susumina met him. He didn't want to talk to at all. Meanwhile, in a room where they control a computer game, Kojiro removed a character named Pico and she disappeared from the game world. Ichi was getting annoyed because he needed Pico's help and wondered why she was taking so long. Then Shigatara, who had taken the guild's weapon, started laughing and attacked Ichi. Kojiro's friend Hana told him that 3 of the game's AI characters, George, Jutaro, and Pico, had been deleted. She was also keeping an eye on other characters like Iris, Zeal, and Julia. Kojiro planned to remove them from the game too. Kojiro kept playing the game even though he wasn't feeling well, which happened when people played for too long. Hana gave him a time limit of 5 minutes and 13 seconds to finish his mission too. Kojiro said he could do it, but Hana was worried and asked how he felt when he saw Pico's emotions before she disappeared. Kojiro started to answer but changed the subject. He decided to carry on with the plan once he felt better and asked for Hana's help. Meanwhile, Shigatara and his friends broke into room looking for Pico, but she was gone. Susumina thought Pico's internet connection got cut off, so she disappeared without finishing her game. They suspected someone named Shiro might have taken her, and Shigatara was excited to find Shiro. He looked at the characters he defeated in the game, and one of them cursed them for betraying their leader Pico. Shigatara hushed him and told the other defeated characters to go back to the main menu. Then he made fun of Ichi, who was dead in the game, and teased him about his gaming skills. Thanks to the powerful guild weapon, Shigatara easily defeated everyone. His stats in the game became super high, over 30,000, making him unbeatable even by experts. Ichi was really sad and begged her not to leave the game. He wanted to create a powerful guild weapon and challenge Shigatara with tears in his eyes. He shared his dream of gathering 10,000 guild members and creating the strongest guild weapon as he slowly disappeared from the game. Shigatara thought Ichi was pathetic for caring more about the black bird, which could earn him lots of money. Without that, he wouldn't have bothered with all of this. He planned to quit the game soon and warned Leon not to ruin things for him. Leon smirked, and then black feathers started falling from the sky. Leon told Shigatara to prepare because he and Susumu were going to summon the black bird. Shigatara was all set for it. In a flashback, we saw the first time Leon extended his hand in friendship to Shigatara, and he revealed they knew how to summon the black bird. Now a dark portal appeared in the sky and a huge claw emerged from it. Tons of dirt formed hair-like strands held together by 3 metal rings and a mask instead of a face, leaking black liquid from its eyes. Shigatara was fascinated even though it looked strange. Suddenly, lots of creatures with thick legs appeared around the black bird. These are like planet's fenders, similar to white blood cells in our bodies that fight off intruders. They appear when something strange is in the game world. They get ready to attack the black birds, but the black bird's mouth twitches and the creatures with thick legs vanish in an instant. The black bird comes towards Susumu and asks about Pico. Leon says they were too late and couldn't save her. Shigatara tries to capture the black bird for money, but it's too quick. He grabs him and throws him off the ship. Shigatara logs out just in time to avoid being defeated. Back at the control station, Kojiro is worried about his sons Takeru and the Asumo. He wakes up and asks Hana for an update. Elsewhere, Shigatara gets frustrated and throws his VR equipment. He feels weird after the black bird touched him, but he's determined to win 300 million yen. He picks up his VR gear, and as he turns around, he senses a shadow behind him. Unbeknownst to him, the black bird is right there. Meanwhile, Kojiro drinks some water to calm down and tells Hana that the black bird is a super evil AI. It's like a life form and a really bad computer virus. If it gets out, it will make people do bad things and harm the world. 3 people have already lost their lives, and it's just getting started. If they don't stop it now, both the online and real worlds will turn into a big mess. Kojiro is worried that the black bird is getting stronger and might mess with important places like banks and the military. He tries to stand up but feels too weak and falls on the couch in his apartment. Shigatara screams when he sees the black bird, but it disappears. He thinks maybe he's seeing things because he's so tired, so he ignores it and tries to play the game again. Oops, he broke his game headset when he threw it on the floor. He grabs his phone and wallet and goes to a nearby internet cafe. While he's walking, he checks his phone and sees another rejection, but he doesn't care anymore. Then he gets a message about a durability test starting. He's confused and steps forward, and then he meets Truck Kuen. He breathes his last. His 4 black birds say he's too weak. Shigatara wakes up screaming and sweating. He had fallen asleep in the chair, and his phone has another message about durability test too. Suddenly, he sees a fire in his apartment and it starts spreading. He tries to escape, but the door is locked. He cries for help, but nobody hears him and he gets burned in the fire. He wakes up again and sees the guy from the next apartment holding a knife. The guy is really mad because Shigatara was playing loud music and he hit Shigatara on the head. After that, Shigatara sees himself getting hit in really bad ways and starts tearing black tears from his eyes. At Planet Susumu calmly explains that if someone gets infected by the black bird, they instantly die and their mind turns into data, taken into a different world, not the real one on planets. No one knows what happens there or what the black bird does to them, but one thing's for sure, Shigatara won't be seen again. Susumu says he feels bad for Shigatara, but Leon reminds him that Shigatara was secretly making lots of money in the real world while being the pirate's treasurer in the game. They agree that the death penalty is a fitting punishment for such bad behavior. As they start disappearing, Leon vows to bridge the gap between the real world and the virtual one. Shortly after they vanish, a big magic circle appears around the ship, breaking it in half and sending it crashing from the sky. News of the pirates disbanding and Pico stepping down as guild master spreads like wildfire on planet. Ichi can't stand people talking badly about Pico, so he takes out 3 characters as he walks by exhausted. Takeru returns to the real world, cries, and finds his mom, Miyabi, behind him. She's been gone for a month and he's happy to see her. They walk downstairs, but Takeru avoids looking at the broken family portrait, which brings back bad memories. He asks where she's been staying and Miyabi says she's been in a net cafe. She came to clean the house and leave some croquettes for her kids. Before leaving, Takeru stops her and tells her that Asuma is in the hospital and so is his dad, Kojiro, whom he calls some not so nice names. Kojiro had back surgery. Miyabi decides to visit Asuma and asks Takeru to come along. He agrees, and at the hospital, they find white feathers flying around. Asuma looks hollow-eyed and black liquid oozes from one of his eyes. It seems he's been infected by the blackbird. Miyabi runs away in fear and screaming while Takeru calls for help. The doctors quickly checked Asuma because they thought his eyes might have burst, causing bleeding. They told Takeru that this kind of bleeding can happen from high blood pressure or a bump. They said Asuma could go home the next day, but Takeru wasn't sure if his brother was really okay. Then Asuma called to Takeru and said he was fine. That made Takeru feel better, and he told Asuma that their mom had been with him but ran away. Takeru also asked about some white feathers they found in a pillow. Asuma just said he was bored. The doctor annoyed Takeru by asking about their dad, who Takeru didn't like. Asuma said he couldn't reach their dad. After the doctor left, Asuma thanked Takeru for visiting and said sorry for what he said last time. Asuma admitted he liked playing a game called Planet. He thought Takeru played it too and said Planet felt like home to him. Takeru realized that in the game was actually Asuma. Takeru cried and told Asuma that he was itchy. Asuma was surprised Takeru had kept the truth hidden because Asuma once said Planet was fake, but now he was ready to say they were both Akabanes. Asuma always had trouble expressing himself, but his brother Takeru was like a shining light for him. He felt comfortable with Takeru, but things changed when Takeru started keeping to himself and Asuma felt lost and disappointed. Then she became a new guiding light in Asuma's life, along with Mei and Shiro Akabane, but Asuma was always afraid it might not be real. One day, Asuma has a realization while looking at the ceiling. He sees his brother as the sun and gives him a hug, which surprises Takeru. Takeru tells Asuma to calm down. Asuma suggests they play and go on an adventure when they get home. Takeru, feeling happy about the truth, says they should train first because Asuma is still weak. This makes Asuma smile. Later in the day, the brothers talk about the transportation system in the game Planet. They plan to introduce affordable taxis for new players and consider the idea of starting a new guild. Their bus is almost here and Asuma realizes he doesn't have the right change. Takeru takes the money and hurries to get the right change for the bus fare while Asuma waits. Hana suddenly pops up next to him and says their taxi guild got shut down because pretend newbie players were robbing them. She warns him not to log into Planet and then disappears. Back at home, Takeru warms up some croquettes and Asuma is all excited to play the game, but their headgear is busted so they can't play just yet. Takeru asks Asuma to change his clothes before they eat. After Asuma leaves the room, Takeru cries tears of joy for finding his little brother again. Asuma finishes changing, but he can't wait to visit Planet. He tries to log in but gets an error. He calls for Takeru and sees the blackbird staring at him. He freaks out, runs outside, and looks for Takeru everywhere. A text about a durability test arrives and a truck speeds towards Asuma. Meanwhile, Takeru finds Asuma collapsed in his room with his gear still on. He tries to wake Asuma and is about to call an ambulance when Hana walks in. Takeru asks who she is. Hana introduces herself as an engineer from Gleam Corp and says she works for their dad. Takeru wants to call an ambulance, but Hana says they won't need one because Asuma is already dead. She explains the blackbird is a nasty virus that can mess up people's minds and she's worried Asuma caught it. Takeru loses his cool and grabs Hana, refusing to believe his brother is gone. Hana explains that they should call their dad and let him know about the infected people's minds getting stuck in a bird cage. This bird cage is like a virtual world controlled by the blackbird and the person's body stops working. They can't save the trapped mind. Takeru almost gives up, but then Asuma, his hand twitches and he gets hopeful. He tells Hana that Asuma is still alive. Hana is surprised and thinks it might be because he got indirectly infected through the Red Dragon's data in another world. Asuma escapes the crash and calls for help thinking it's all real, but soon he's in a battle to stay safe as the truck tries to hurt him. Takeru gets scared when Asuma's eyes start bleeding black stuff. Hana says it's because the blackbird is sending mean signals to his brain, seeing how much Takeru wants to save his brother. Hana asks if he's ready to give up his life for Asuma. Takeru says yes really fast, which surprises Hana. She tells him they need to go to a special place and they take Asuma with them while they watch over Asuma. Hana tells Takeru that the world where Asuma's mind is stuck is a complicated place made by his dad. It's called a bird cage, a super virtual world that looks just like the real world. Hana says sorry to Takeru and tells him goodbye. Takeru sits there wearing a special headset. In the birdcage, Asuma is about to be attacked by an ambulance while the blackbird watches. Right before the ambulance hits Asuma, Takeru appears as Ichi and stops it using his powers. He floats the ambulance away and looks at Asuma. Ichi has been infected and one of his eyes looks empty. He wipes Asuma's tears and tells him that the world they're in isn't real, his real body is unconscious. Ichi asks Asuma if the blackbirds scared him. Asuma says they did, which makes Ichi really mad. He punches the blackbird and calls it mean for scaring his little brother. The blackbird and Ichi have a kind of shouting match and the blackbird breaks free from the metal ties and stabs Ichi. Ichi doesn't give up even though his eyes are bleeding. He grabs the thing sticking into him and says something that makes a pattern on the blackbird's body, covering it completely. The blackbird shatters into pieces. Then he sees another blackbird and knows it's the real one. He tries to punch it but his arm explodes. The blackbird takes over his arm and a mask appears on Ichi's body. Ichi uses something called Hello World, a move that cuts the connection between the blackbird and the birdcage. When he yells it, everything gets super bright. The clouds part and sunlight shines on Ichi. He lands with the blackbird on him unconscious. Ichi tells Asuma to leave before the blackbird wakes up. Asuma's body starts glowing and becomes light. He's about to go back to the real world, but when he sees that Ichi can't come with him, he holds Ichi's hand and asks him to come along. Ichi knows he can't, so he says a sad goodbye to Asuma, who cries for his brother. Asuma wakes up with tears on his cheeks. In the game planet, Susumu tells Leon that the blackbird is getting weaker and someone seems to be finding a way to fight it. Leon feels a little worried but says he won't let planet disappear. Back at the special place, Asuma breathes a big sigh of relief when he sees Takeru by his bed crying. Asuma tells Takeru that he had a dream that felt so real he thought he'd never see Takeru again, but he's happy it was just a dream. Takeru asks if Asuma is hurt and Asuma says he feels numb below his neck. Hana explains that it's because the connection between his body and brain needs some time to get better. Asuma recognizes Hana and Takeru formally introduces her as his dad's co-worker. He also says she saved Asuma's life. Asuma argues that it was Ichi who saved him because he saw him. Before Takeru went into the birdcage, Hana told him about another world whereas believed they're humans, so Hana made an AI version of Ichi with his memories and personality an exact copy. This other issue saved Asuma and then disappeared because when the AI figures out they're not real they choose to go away. Hana drives the brothers home and they can't believe that Asuma was almost brain dead a little while ago. They asked about the special place and Hana says it's just an office and she's a manager there. Before her, Kojiro was the manager but he argued with the higher-ups and got fired. She tells them that their dad was in charge of making Planet, Blackbird, and Birdcage. It was their dad's idea to delete the AI that power the Blackbird to weaken it. He's determined to find and destroy all those AIs. Gleam Corp spent a lot of money making the AIs to show them. She lets go of the steering wheel and the car can drive itself without the driver's help, but the company wanted something even more advanced, so they made the Blackbird, which is a mean cyber spirit. This makes Takeru super mad and he yells about his dad. He's angry that his dad created something so dangerous even though he knew it could cause problems. He calls his dad a perfectionist who wanted perfect kids and a perfect mom to raise them. He says his dad was selfish because he cared more about what he wanted than what was good for them. Asuma adds that maybe that's why he likes Shiro so much, because he's like the dad they never had. Hana wants to tell them the truth about their dad, but Takeru doesn't want to hear it, so she stops. Meanwhile, their dad, Kojiro, wakes up at Hana's place after 2 days. He reads Asuma's text about being in the hospital and hurries to check on him when the hospital staff tells him that Asuma was released that afternoon. He's so happy and thanks them for the good news. The boys get home and Asuma goes inside. Takeru stays and asks Hana what their dad has been doing. Hana tells him that Kojiro has been using a special headset to stay connected to the game, but it's tiring, so he's been sleeping for a while. Takeru is surprised and gets ready to ask something but changes his mind. Hana suggests that he should try to see Kojiro as a regular person and not just his dad, even though they have a lot of bad memories. Takeru smirks and tells Hana about Aya, Asuma's twin sister. She was slower to learn things, which made her apologize a lot. He thinks she could never do anything to make Kojiro happy. One day Aya had forgot her notebook at school, so Kojiro sent her back to get it even though it was late at night and their school was close by. Their mom asked the security guard to meet her at the school gate, but that night Aya didn't come home. Later, they found her dead in a box and crows were trying to get to her. It was called the Moto Akatsuka cardboard box incident. What made it worse was that Kojiro denied being at fault at her funeral. Takeru says he doesn't see Kojiro as his dad. Just then, Kojiro arrives and stands in front of them. In the game planet, the board members talk about the news that President Leon might join them. They wonder what they'll discuss, and then Leon comes in. He greets everyone and starts the meeting by talking about the boring real world. He says Susumu is an AI and it surprises everyone. He goes on to say that Susumu isn't the only one. There are other AIs like George of the Cyber Knights, Jutaro the Fortune Teller, and Pico of the Pirates. Everyone is shocked by this news. Susumu is the only AI who knows what he really is. He's still learning and he has feelings like humans. Leon gets all emotional and talks about Susumu. Susumu takes off his mask and shows his real face, which is like a dark cloud with 4 eyes and a diamond shape. Leon says that Shiro is going to hunt down Susumu. After calming down, Leon says he wants to turn Susumu into a real human and change what it means to be human. He wants a world where they can both exist together. All of a sudden, black feathers start falling from the sky and a bunch of blackbirds appear over the board members. They grab onto the board members and make them their victims. Leon keeps talking and says that the blackbirds took their energy and they had to sacrifice the people of Granada. The people gave their power to the blackbird and now they'll be part of it forever in the game planets. Soon after, black feathers start falling in the game and everyone wonders what's going on. On Earth, Kojiro gets mad at Hana for coming to his house, but when he finds out the blackbird infected Asuma, he rushes inside and calls out for Asuma. Even though Asuma seems fine, Kojiro wants to do a brain check and asks him to come to his office. Taikaro won't let him get his way this time. He calls Kojiro mean name and snatches the hairpiece Kojiro wears to hide his bald spot. Taikaro shouts at his dad for creating something so bad that almost hurt Asuma, and he hints at what happened in the past. Kojiro acts all insensitive and tells Taikaro to forget what happened to Aya. Taikaro can't believe his dad said that and gets ready to punch him, but Asuma does it first. Asuma says sorry right away and explains he did it to stop Taikaro. He helps Kojiro up and tells him they can't just forget what happened in the past because it still affects them. Taikaro is done and decides to run away just like his mom did. He says goodbye to Asuma and starts running away in the middle of the night without any plan. Kojiro chases after him to stop him from running off. Asuma yells at his dad to stop because he just had back surgery. The chase ends in a horrible way when Kojiro falls and both his legs get cut off. Taikaro stops running and is shocked to see a weird squirrel-like monster the bloody side. In the real world, black feathers start falling and monsters show up and attack people. The technology starts failing as the real world and the game world mix up. Kojiro is chasing after Taikaro and then something strange happens. His legs get cut off by a Kamaitachi, the level 9 magic beast that controls the wind. As he's bleeding, he starts blaming humans for all the problems in the world. He thinks there was no need for AI to try to help humans, then he realizes he's facing a Kamaitachi and it's a big deal. This creature is powerful. Hana and Asuma rush to Kojiro and Taikaro stands there amazed by the Kamaitachi. The Kamaitachi tries to attack Taikaro with sickle, but a hairball comes out of nowhere and gets in its eyes, making it drop the sickle. Asuma picks up the sickle and holds the Kamaitachi by the neck, asking Taikaro if their dad is okay. Before Asuma can do anything else, the Kamaitachi escapes, taking its sickle with it. Hana tells Asuma that their dad is losing blood, so Asuma carries him on his back and Hana picks up his legs. Taikaro wants to know how they let a level 9 beast into their world, but his dad says their program got changed. Taikaro is mad and asks for an explanation, but Kojiro tells Hana to say a special word and then he glows and his legs come back. It's shocking. Kojiro explains that they've all been infected and put into a virtual reality experiment. Now they're all at home, trying to understand what's happening and thinking about what to do next. They turn on the TV and find out that the game planet is messed up. Weird creatures are attacking people everywhere. Hana figures out that they're all in a game, but it's like a dream they all share and none of it is real. The Blackbird has taken over the whole internet. Taikaro starts blaming his dad for the problems in the game planet, feeling sad. Kojiro starts to explain that it wasn't on purpose but a business project, and he's really sorry about how things turned out. Hana, wanting to see him sad, goes over and holds his hands to comfort him. Suddenly, Taikaro spots his mom on TV and she's lost at the north side of the station. He quickly runs out of the room to save her with Asuma following him. They leave Kojiro and Hana behind. Kojiro falls to the ground feeling really upset about all the chaos caused by his business project. Hana helps him up and tells him that crying won't help and he has to be strong for his family. Taikaro and Asuma are outside in the middle of all the chaos looking for their mom. They find her and save her from a big rock that a monster knocked over. The monster notices them and tries to hurt them, but Kojiro jumps in and attacks it from above with his explosive fist. The monster gets angry and throws Kojiro into a building and rocks start falling toward his wife and sons. They try to run, but they can't escape the rocks. Taikaro does some magic to help them jump out of the way. Asuma is surprised that Taikaro can do magic, but their mom is worried about their dad. Kojiro manages to come out from under the rubble using his explosive fists to knock the monster down. Kojiro is sad as his family asks about his powers. He tells them he had to hack the Blackbird's algorithm and Hana helped him do it. Taikaro is still mad about the situation and asks his dad to fix it, but Kojiro says they'll need to find the black box and delete it themselves. Miyabi, his wife, is confident they can do it as long as they're together. Miyabi is really scared and starts seeing things that aren't there, like their daughter Aya. Kojiro gets angry and tries to shake her to make her stop. He says their daughter was murdered a long time ago and he's gripping her too tightly. Asuma tells him to stop because he's hurting her, but Kojiro won't listen. Suddenly, Kojiro feels a pain in his back and realizes Taikaro has sapped him with a sword. He hits Taikaro and Taikaro falls to the floor. Kojiro says he's sorry, but Taikaro is mad and walks away from them. Asuma refuses to leave and she tells them they have to stay together and be happy because that's what they wanted. In the virtual reality they were happy just like they always wished. Taikaro starts to talk about his feelings and the tough times he went through and why he ended up running to an alternate planet, but as he's explaining, a black spirit leaves him and goes into someone else. It turns out that Taikaro has been possessed by Susumita the Blackbird, an AI that feeds on people's sadness and pain. It's been causing chaos on their planet and destroying it. Kojiro tries to attack Susumita, but it's too strong and it knocks Kojiro to the ground without even touching him. So Kojiro asks Hana not to fight because she's like the operating system of this world and could destroy them. Leon starts blaming Kojiro for everything and tries to think of a way to punish him for creating the planet. He decides to leave Kojiro. Asuma, Taikaro, and Miyabi is a family on the planet as punishment, but Hana doesn't want to be stuck there forever, so she speaks up. Susumita goes after her and tries to delete her because she helped create the planet. Then Susumita blasts Hana and she dies. Kojiro felt really sad when Hana died. He held her lifeless body and cried, but his friends Leon and Susumita didn't seem to care. They just walked away. Kojiro tried to use a spell to bring Hana back to life, but it didn't work. He got really mad and tried to attack Leon and Susumita, but before he could reach them, Susumita snapped his fingers and a strong wind pushed Kojiro back and made him smaller. Meanwhile, Taikaro stared at Hana's body and remembered all the fun times they had together. He started crying. Now Asuma was on his way to Kojiro's house. He saw two men stealing stuff from a house, and when they saw Asuma, they wanted to hurt him, but Asuma fought them off and killed them both. He was surprised to find out that they were also survivors of the bad thing that happened. Asuma went to Kojiro's house and rang the bell. He told Kojiro that Miyabi and Taikaro were going to a shelter, but he was willing to stay with Kojiro. Kojiro told Asuma to leave with his family to keep them safe. Asuma asked Kojiro why he wanted to stay and fight Leon and Susumita. He told Kojiro that hiding in his house wouldn't help. Kojiro finally let Asuma inside, but he made him promise not to tell Miyabi and Taikaro what he was about to see. Asuma was shocked when he saw Hana sitting in a chair alive. He thought Kojiro had lost his mind, but Kojiro explained that Hana was running on a special program and could never be herself again. He asked Asuma to help him bury her. They buried Hana in the backyard and sat down to talk. Kojiro told Asuma that Hana's data had been deleted and that's why she died. Asuma was feeling down and he told his dad Kojiro that many people thought the world was just a computer game. He said he understood why, because everything seemed fake and they had no idea what was happening in the real world, or the condition of their real bodies. Kojiro had a bunch of ideas about what might be going on in the real world based on something called the quantum no-cloning theorem, but it was all too complicated for Asuma to get. Asuma said he didn't really care about all that stuff as long as he was alive, but Kojiro got mad and told him to stop being so negative and that they were going to find a way out of this virtual world. Asuma told his dad that he wasn't as much of a perfectionist as Kojiro and Taikaro. He saw the good in things as long as they weren't too bad. He felt like the worst was over, so he didn't worry too much about what happened next. Kojiro was confused by what Asuma said. He invited Asuma to stay at their house for the night and said they would all go to the shelter the next day to give Miyabi and Taikaro a gift before they left, but Asuma thought it wouldn't be a good idea for him to see Taikaro because he suspected that Kojiro might have planned everything about this virtual world. Asuma agrees not to see Taikaro and took a gift from Kojiro with specific instructions. The next day, Asuma left Kojiro's house telling him he'd be back in 2 days, but as soon as Asuma left, Kojiro swore to end their suffering and transformed into game named Shiro Akabane. Asuma went to the shelter and went to Miyabi and Taikaro's apartment. He saw his mom and she asked why his dad didn't come along. Asuma told her that his dad was okay at home, but she still wanted all of them to be together. Asuma gave Takeru the gift from his dad, but Takeru got really angry and slammed it on the floor. Miyabi picked it up and gave it back to Asuma. Asuma then tried to give it to Takeru again and passing on a message from Kojiro. Right then 2 men came up to the shelter guard and tried to convince them to join a new group called Granada where there were no monsters. In front of the elementary school there was a young boy trying to convince a crowd of people to join the kingdom of Granada. A woman in the crowd talked about how amazing the king Susumu was and everyone cheered and praised him. The young boy was thinking about how to make the kingdom even bigger when Shiro walked in and used the magic spell to make the crowd see him as a scary monster. Everybody got scared and ran away. Shiro asked the young boy where Susumu was, and the boy said he didn't know. Shiro asked for the boy's name and he said it was Leon. Shiro told Leon how much he used to like him when he was a developer, but now he had to be stopped, but Leon just smirked and said Shiro would have to apologize to Susumu and other AIs because only the developers were being stopped, not the AIs. Shiro tried to attack Leon, but Susumu appeared behind Leon and stopped Shiro in the middle of his attack. She rewound Shiro's actions, and when she played it again, Shiro couldn't move his arms and legs. Shiro was really mad and tried to ask Susumu a question, but she wanted to ask him a question first. She asked Shiro she was modeled after, but he said she wasn't modeled after anyone. He said she was just a vessel filled with emotions, but he blamed himself for creating her. Susumu wasn't happy with Shiro's answer, but she told him to ask his question. Shiro asked her if it was on purpose that she gathered his family into this planet at the point where they all met, but Susumu didn't answer his question and just ignored it. Shiro felt bad and told her she didn't have to answer, but either way she was the worst virus ever created and she would be erased along with this fake world they were in. When he looked up, he saw Susumu laughing. She told him she understood everything now, that he made her out of his selfishness and she had no model or backup. Leon tried to cheer her up by calling her the King of Granada, but she just thanked him and said she would destroy Shiro. Maybe that would change something in her. Then Shiro tried to attack Susumu with something called Goodnight World, an antivirus created by him and Hana to stop the Blackbird, but before he could hit her, she snapped her fingers and turned him into Kojiro. She made him younger and joked that he looked like Takeru. Susumu said she wasn't a virus anymore, she was a god, an application that ran this world. She reached out to destroy Kojiro, but a phone that was given to Asuma for Takeru lit up and they heard Kojiro's voice calling out to them. Then faces started appearing everywhere in their place and they were all really scared. The big battle is starting. Susumu is attacking Kojiro and Leon tries to warn her about being slow, but she can't hear him. She throws her first punch at Kojiro, but it breaks before reaching him. Sesomaru falls down shocked that her attack didn't work. Kojiro tells her she's like a computer virus and he's taking control of the system. Then he turns into a white version of Susumu and says he needs to stop all the pain she's caused. His eyes and mouth start bleeding. Susumu makes fun of Kojiro, saying he turned into a monster to get back at her and his family could. Kojiro lifts his head and launches an attack on Susumu and Leon yells her name as the attack hits her. Suddenly everything starts glitching in the shelter and everyone is scared. Takeru grabs a device and finds a message from his dad, but it's really upsetting. Takeru gets mad and stomps on a face on the ground and a message appears saying to delete the world with him. Everyone is shocked and wonders why his dad would say that. Asuma's body starts growing faces, which is super creepy. Kojiro and Susumu end up in a weird place and Susumu thinks it might be the afterlife, but Kojiro doesn't. The building is falling apart and a big block almost hits Miyabi and Takeru, but Asuma saves them. Asuma says they need to go, but Miyabi's scared of the monsters outside. Takeru was just staring at the device, not sure what to do. His mom and brother tried to get his attention, but it's not working. Then Takeru finally speaks up. He explains that all this trouble started because Kojiro defeated the Blackbird. He turned himself into something that messed up the system, but he can't control it. That's why he gave Takeru the device to fix things. Takeru tells Asuma and Miyabi that if he uses the device, Kojiro will be erased from it, and that's what Kojiro wanted. Asuma and Miyabi gasp, worried about what might happen next. They beg Takeru to use the device, but then Takeru starts remembering Aya and goes into a trance. He sees Kojiro asking him to attack. He's got a sword in Kojiro's neck about to strike, but he snaps out of it, throws the device on the ground and runs away. As he runs, he's really mad and transforms into Ichi and wants to mess up Kojiro's plan. He goes to the elementary school, smashes the gates with his sword and finds Leon looking at a glowing ball of light. He calls out to Leon and they start fighting. Leon has a gun and Ichi has his sword. Their weapons get damaged, but they keep trying to hit each other hard. Meanwhile, Susumu is still asking Kojiro about her existence. She wants to know what she is and why he made her. Kojiro tells her she's like a human AI and Blackbird was just the nickname. Susumu starts crying and says she loves Leon and he's her best friend. She never liked the name Susumu. He told Sajumato that he made her because he lost someone he loved a lot. He was really sad and didn't care about danger. And guess what? He never told anyone, not even Hana, why he made her. He also mentioned that he always had a name in mind for her, but she never answered to it. Poor Leon started crying after Ichi hit him, but Ichi got annoyed and asked him to stop. Then Ichi asked Leon where Kojiro and Susumu were. Leon started talking about how much the planet meant to him and Susumu. It was where they became best friends, and he also talked about Susumu's struggles. Ichi didn't want to hear all that, he just wanted to know where Kojiro was. Leon pointed at the glowing ball, so Ichi went up to it and yelled for Kojiro to come out. He grabbed a huge sword and smacked it into the glowing ball. Meanwhile, Kojiro told Susumu that he called her Aya because she was like all his wishes. He thought disappearing in the void with her was the best way to go. All of a sudden the void opened above them and Ichi grabbed Kojiro. He was surprised because he knew Ichi didn't like Kojiro. He didn't get why Ichi didn't let him die. Ichi kept pulling Kojiro, saying he couldn't let him die. Leon looked down and called Susumu, but she said she wasn't Susumu, she was Aya. She reached out to hold Kojiro. Kojiro got all emotional and thanked Ichi for helping him. Ichi said he only came to mess up Kojiro's plans, but Kojiro thanked him anyway. Ichi asked Kojiro to come out of the void, but he said it wasn't a real death. He thought it would make the world go back to normal and make up for his mistakes. He begged for Ichi's forgiveness even though Ichi really hated his dad. He didn't want him to die. Tears started flowing from his eyes. Kojiro saw him crying and went toward him asking him not to cry, but then Kojiro started crying too. Aya called out to them and Ichi was shocked to see his sister. Kojiro hugged Aya and Ichi and Leon watched in amazement. Aya told them she loved them. She and Kojiro disappeared into the void and it disappeared too. It left Leon on the ground crying. Now everything's back to normal on the planet and people are curious about their real bodies. Their bodies are totally fine and going about their regular lives. The gaming company Gleam Corp blamed the whole mess on some of their naughty workers to avoid getting in trouble, and no one has a clue what happened to the birdcage. Ichi walks a lonely road missing a hand and talking to a mask on his shoulder. He stops in surprise when he sees a girl coming his way. They both freeze and look at each other. The girl starts crying and calls him Ichi. Ichi figures out that this girl is Pico. They run to each other and share a big hug. Pico tells Ichi that she loves him. Now it's been 8 years since the planet game was turned off. Takeru on his phone watching a documentary about it when he gets a call from Asuma. Asuma asks about Takeru's plans and says he wants to visit a place with him and their mom. Takeru asks where they're going, but he's worried it might be too much for their mom. He promises to go with Asuma though. They met at the airport and go to the place Asuma mentions. It's where their family took a photo and Takeru is amazed that it hasn't changed at all. Takeru suggests making a headstone for their dad, but Asuma says no. He thinks their dad might still be alive, so Takeru suggests building a house instead with a branch of his office. Their mom can move in there permanently. They both agree and leave to get something to eat. Thanks for watching. Want more anime recaps? Subscribe the channels and turn on notification bell.